If you ever wonder how some engineers seem to be able to get the best opportunities through networking and how they find it very easy while others don't, then this video is for you. Let's first address the thing that makes most engineers want to run in the opposite direction when they hear the word networking. If you ever felt physically uncomfortable at the thought of walking up to strangers at a conference or sending cold messages on LinkedIn, you're not broken. There's actually a reason why this feels so wrong to you, and it has nothing to do with whether you're good enough as an engineer or confident enough as a leader. Here's what's happening. Engineers are kind of conditioned over many years in their professional career to let their work speak for itself. You've spent years learning that good designs, solid solutions, and technical expertise are what matter, and of course they do. The entire foundation of your education and early career was built on the idea that quality work gets recognized. So when somebody tells you they need to put yourself out there and talk about yourself to strangers, it feels fundamentally fake. It can feel like you're supposed to become somebody you're not, just to get ahead. And here's the part that makes it worse. Most networking advice is actually written by people from sales or marketing who genuinely make a living out of talking to new people all day. Some of these folks who get energy from social interaction, who can walk into a room full of strangers feeling excited rather than exhausted like us, they tell you to be just confident or show up to events and mix in, which is about helpful as telling somebody to just be taller or be shorter. The advice assumes that you already have some personality traits that they might have, but the real issue isn't that you're introverted or shy. The issue is that you're trying to follow extroverted networking strategies that will never feel natural to you, no matter how many times you try. When you force yourself into situations that drain you, like going to after-work events where you are supposed to make small talk with dozens of people you'll never see again, you're not building connections. You're building resentment toward the entire process. You can start associating networking with discomfort, a sense of fakeness, and wasted time or evenings. And then you avoid it completely, which means that you can miss out on the actual opportunities that could change your career. I've seen engineers convince themselves they're just not the networking type or networking people after one or two of those experiences feeling lost at crowded events. They decide that building connection isn't for them, so they just focus on the technical skills and hope it will be enough. Sometimes it is, but most of the time they watch less technically skilled people move into better roles simply because those people know how to stay connected with others in their field. The good news is that effective networking for engineers looks nothing like what you've been told to do. You don't need to be a social butterfly who works the room at every industry event, and you definitely don't need to pretend to be someone you're not. In fact, let's talk about what networking actually is, because it's probably completely different from the version you have in your mind. Most engineers hear networking and picture forced small talk or awkward and fake enthusiasm or asking people for favors. That's not networking. That risks coming across as transactional. Real networking is something completely different. And once you understand it, it actually becomes not just less awkward, but actually quite useful. Networking can be as simple as staying in touch with the people who do similar work to you in the same professional circles. That's the actual definition when you strip away all the nonsense. It can be the senior engineer you've worked with 3 years ago who sends you a text when their team has an opening because they remember you're good at what you do. It can be the person you meet at a new meetup and ask if you want to collaborate on a project because you had an interesting conversation about a shared interest. It could be your former manager who remembers you when their new company needs somebody with your specific skills and experience. Notice what's different in all these scenarios. You're not asking for anything. You're not pitching yourself. You're not trying to convince anyone that you're worth knowing. You're just somebody they know, someone they've stayed in contact with, and someone they think of when something relevant comes up. And here's what most people completely miss about this. These connections benefit both people involved. When someone refers you for a job, they look good for bringing in a solid candidate who they can vouch for. When you share a useful article or resource with somebody in your field, they get value from it, and you stay on the radar as somebody who shares helpful information with others. When you introduce two people who should know each other, both of them appreciate it. And remember, you did that for them. Occasionally, you could also reach out to people when you need something. Of course, when you're job hunting, when you need a reference, when you want an introduction to someone. Doing that out of the blue will be awkward and come across as using people. But when it follows a longer period of networking and staying in touch, then it will be normal, because you already have established that link and maintained it over a period of time. And people could tell, everybody could tell most of the time when somebody only contacts them because they want something from them. The engineers who are genuinely good at this treat it like maintaining friendships in a way, not like collecting business cards or LinkedIn connections. They do check in occasionally with people they've worked with in the past. They share interesting things they've learned or read with others. They offer help when they can, even when there is no immediate benefit back to them. They remember details about people's lives and careers and ask about them occasionally. One engineer I know, for instance, sends a quick message every few months to former co-workers just to see how they're doing. Not a long message, nothing too complicated, not asking for anything, just a genuine check-in. Now, when that engineer was looking for a new role last year, 5 different people reached out to them with opportunities before they even updated their LinkedIn. That's not luck, that's the result of treating professional relationships like actual relationships instead of transactions. When you approach networking this way, it stops being about self-promotion and starts being about building actual professional relationships with real people. And those relationships create opportunities that you literally cannot access any other way. The jobs that never get posted, the projects that go to people the team already trusts, and the introductions that lead to career changes you never would have thought possible. So now the question becomes, how do you actually do this in a way that feels natural and doesn't require you to become a different person? Now, if you want networking to feel less forced and more like something you can actually maintain, you need to prepare in a way that plays to your strengths as an engineer. Most people who seem naturally good at this aren't winging it, and they're not just extroverts who love talking to people. They're using some sort of a system, and you can build one too. Start by making a list of maybe 10 people you already know professionally or more. Not people you want to know or people you think you should know, people you actually have some kind of existing connection with. So that could be a former co-worker from previous jobs, or people from your university who are now working in your field, or engineers you've interacted with in online communities or forums or on LinkedIn. It could be speakers whose talks you've attended in the past and maybe asked a couple of questions afterward, or people you worked with on a project, even if it was briefly. You're not going to message all of them today. You're just going to create a list of those real humans that you have legitimate connections to, even if that connection is small. Then pick one thing you can offer each of them that requires zero effort on their part and doesn't put them in a position where they feel obligated to respond to you. You could forward an article about a certain technology they use, or a problem you know they're working on, or something related to the field. You could comment thoughtfully on something they've posted on LinkedIn. Mention a job posting at your company that might interest them with no pressure to apply. Share a new tool or resource that you found helpful that's relevant to your and their work. The key here is that you're giving first, not asking for anything in return. You're not saying, let's grab a coffee so I can pick your brains, or could you please introduce me to your manager? None of that. You're just being helpful and thoughtful with no expectations whatsoever of anything in return. Do this once every few weeks with different people on your list, and you're already doing more than 90% of engineers out there. You're always staying on people's radar as somebody who shares useful information and thinks of them occasionally. Now, here's the part that makes you seem natural instead of transactional. When you eventually do need something, you reach out to someone you've already been in touch with periodically, not someone you haven't talked to in 3 years or more. If you've been sending useful articles or resources to someone every couple of months, asking them for a chat or help or an introduction doesn't feel weird or out of nowhere. It feels like a natural continuation of an existing relationship. But if you only contact people when you need something, then you know exactly what's happening and it feels uncomfortable for everybody involved. The thing that separates people who are genuinely good at this from people who struggle with it isn't charisma or extroversion, it's actually consistency. They actually do the work of staying in touch. They set reminders to reach out to 2 or 3 people every few weeks. They show up to meetings and events every quarter. They stay in touch with people. They make it a habit to attend, to learn and keep up to date with everything new in the industry and with the people who work in it. You can spend 30 minutes per week on this consistently, even when you're not actively job hunting. You can treat it like any other skill you're developing, something that requires regular practice and attention, not something that you should just let happen randomly. I know an engineer who every Sunday picks 2 people they haven't contacted in a while and sends them something relevant to what they do. That's it. That's their entire system. But because that person does it every single week, they have a network that actually knows them and thinks of them when opportunities come up. When that engineer put it on LinkedIn that they are looking to move into a leadership role the other day, 3 different people contacted them about openings without them even applying anywhere. So when you treat networking like a system instead of a personality trait, it stops being about whether you're outgoing enough or confident enough. It becomes a skill you can practice and improve, just like anything else you've learned in your career. And it's a skill that will have more trajectory on your career, like many other technical skills you'll develop. None of this means technical skills don't matter, but it does mean that your potential can be maximized and magnified with very little networking. You see, the engineers who advance the fastest and have the most control over their careers aren't always necessarily the most technically brilliant. They are the ones who understand that opportunities can flow through people and that staying connected with those people is a skill worth developing, just like any other professional capability you might have. For them, networking is part of their career plan. Speaking of which, if you like this video and it changed how you think about building your career as an engineer, then you would definitely like my other video on career planning, where I give practical advice for engineers planning their careers. Thank you for watching. All the best, and I'll see you soon.